Hi, welcome to Karen's Conversations number 37, certainly clocking them up over the last couple of weeks. This week we're talking lean thinking, and I have the pleasure of talking to Rob Bull across the ditch in New Zealand. So without further ado, welcome Rob, and introduce yourself to everyone.
Yeah, thanks Karen, and welcome to everyone who's listening. It's been a great day over here in New Zealand, and I was going to wear my netball supporter shirt on, but I thought I'd better keep that in the wardrobe for now. I'm Rob Bull. Do support organisations with lean thinking, operational excellence, which we'll get into, I guess. Based in the mighty Waikato, centre of North Island and in Hamilton. So in the heart of what they call the Golden Triangle between Auckland, Hamilton and Tauranga. So half the population of New Zealand lives in that area. So it's a good place to be.
Awesome. So tell us a bit about how you got into lean and operational excellence, and a bit about your organisation.
My journey is pretty not typical for a lean practitioner, because my background's in health. I spent 20 odd years as a health professional, and also going through the management and bureaucracy, working in district health boards in New Zealand, and both in operations management and also in the governance or the funding side. So with all of that, I was always that project guy, and I've always looked, back in the years, I look back in TQM, total quality management, all those things spun my wheels. And it wasn't until I got a bit of a hot potato pass one day and said, can you do this lean stuff? So it was kind of that aha moment of, where has this been all my life? Because when you look into it, and you always look into it, it was all the thing. It kind of provided the framework of all these things that I've been trying to do, but kind of made sense, and just made sense of all of that different lines of thought. So, so I was working with some health organisations doing that, and working with their health teams, mainly in primary care, and then had a bit of a midlife crisis. You restructure it out and all of that. So you go, do I do this as try and do this as for myself, or do I get a real job? So 3.5 years later, still working. So I've actually done lean sort of in the non-traditional areas, and going back into manufacturing and learning that way, rather than it's quite typical being in manufacturing and Toyota and all of those kind of things, and working out. So I talk to lean colleagues, and they go, how do you do it in an office or a not-for-profit? Or, okay, that's easy. How do you do it in a factory? So that was my early conversations. Now it's all the same.
Yeah,
it's all the same.
Cool. Thanks for that. So you've already mentioned that you have a focus on operational excellence.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a really great term. What does it really mean?
Operational excellence, basically, I like to simplify these things, but in effect, and I listened to a well-known CEO a few weeks back, and he really nailed it down. So it follows the good to great. So the book Good to Great, and the work in that publication. So it's around, as an organisation, and it's that framework, it's the mindset, right? A lot of stuff that you do and I do, it's all about creating that mindset right across the whole team, from chief exec office down to every staff member. What operational excellence does is provides that framework of, are you working on customer experience and customer outcome and satisfaction, all of those things? Are you working with your staff and engagement of staff? And are you running a good business? And most organizations tend to work one or two of those at a time, but not all three. So those kind of your three pillars of operational excellence. So customer outcome or customer experience, smart business, and engaged staff. And bringing all that then together, then that's operational excellence. I mean, you can look at the definitions of, it's successful implementation of strategy, it's transparent leadership, and all of those things. But fundamentally, if you're looking at those 3 pillars, you're working on operational excellence. So yeah.
Awesome. So if you were to engage with an organization, let's say a mid-sized organization who said, oh, like what you're talking about there, Rob, come and tell us where we're at, and you would do something like an operational excellence assessment, how would you go about that? What would that look like if I was the person engaging you?
Sure. Yeah. Couple of stages really on this one. One, I've definitely got a review. It's kind of a self-assessment plus a peer review as well. And it looks at 9 aspects that basically covers those 3 areas that we talked about. And that matches to, yeah, we're doing it okay versus this is kind of world-class statement or a standard. And it's quite interesting because you get to talk to them question by question. So it is literally just going through and going, how do you measure yourself? And they go, oh, we're pretty good at that. Right, read through these statements. Oh, maybe we're a 2. And certainly at the start, we get them to, be really honest and brutal to themselves so they can really identify the specific areas. So you do that, but also the subjective stuff. So it is walking around. It is looking at what you see and what you hear through the staff. So that's probably a summary of more formalized process versus that subjective, bring it together and go, this is where you're at, and these are your strengths and your weaknesses. What's our next, what do you want to tackle first? So they can create a prioritized list around that. So yeah, so that it's a few hours worth of work to go through that process, but it's a good stake in the ground.
Yeah, good baseline to start from.
Absolutely.
And what are the common findings? Is every organisation different, or is there a theme when you do these assessments that comes to the surface?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it probably is a reflection on the leadership as well. So it gives me a good insight of the approach the leadership's taking. But yeah, no, everyone's different. So everyone's where they're on that level of maturity are always different. So yeah, it's you just sit back and wait and see what the results are. And it's also a good indication just going through the process, like a lot of what we do, it's the process which is quite interesting in itself. So seeing how open and honest the leadership of an organization or a business is, some of those questions, or are they defensive? So that gives me a lot of intel about how am I going to approach them in the future. So if they're quite open and honest and brutal with themselves, it's going to be a lot more enjoyable than the ones who think they're good, because then you have to spend a lot of time to prove that they might not be as good as they really think they are.
And do you do any comparison between, when you do that assessment, what the leadership are telling you versus what the people on the ground are telling you?
Good question. I haven't gone through that process formally, but I guess that's the that walk around and that subjective information, and you do that before you sit down and formally, I guess, go through the questionnaire, because then you can test going, actually, that doesn't correlate to what I've seen or heard. Let's talk about this. And that's why that process can be quite drawn out, because you are using that information to go, are you actually, because I'm there to be the honest Joe, right? Keep them honest. So it is. I haven't actually seen that in a little bit of time I've been here already. Let's correlate, let's get a baseline on this one.
No, I think what you're saying is right. You go around and listen to what people are saying, and then that's a really good approach, and then have the conversation. So, well, that's not quite what I've heard. Let's drill down a bit in that. So once they've had the assessment, they've got a prioritized list. What are the next steps? Is there a standard series of steps that you'd work with the organisation?
Yeah, and I guess that's something that's evolved over time. So typically what I'll do is I'll take a step, and I know this is a question that you've got coming up, but I'll also use my simulation tools to start. One, because it's fun. And two, I get to learn the team members I'm going to be working with. So it's a good, and we can do it introductory. So that's where I get a lot of my soft intel, because you can take them aside and have questions, and you learn a lot more again through the doing rather than the outcome of that process. So I generally go through the organisation. Once we're green to go, then we do sort of the Lego simulation game as a bit of a warm-up introductory to operational excellence and lean thinking, but also about each other's style, right? So they get to know who I am, which is quite critical. And then we do that formal stuff. And so after all that, we bring it all together and go, right, with all of this finding, what's our roadmap of where do we start? Because before that, people go, well, what are we going to work on first? And you kind of sound like Yoda. I think I've talked about on LinkedIn, is that Yoda moment is, I don't know until we start. And then once we find out, we know where we're going. So it is a bit of trust and faith, really, but yeah. So my Yoda chatters often comes up in conversation.
So you mentioned at the front some of the sort of industries you worked in. So you've worked across health, public service, manufacturing.
Yeah.
So when you're doing the assessment and helping these organisations, to move towards operational excellence, are there key differences between them, or are there any commonalities?
Yeah, I mean, when you break it down to principles, there are always going to be commonalities. But there, at the same time, I'll contradict myself, there are differences as well. And it's purely down to the leadership and how well, or the maturity of that organisation. And you can almost tell that before you get in there by who's invited me into that organisation. If it's the 2IC or an operations manager encouraging the CEO, then that already tells it. But health a really interesting one, because health professionals by nature being trained and brought up and work by best practice, which it's part of our DNA, right? So of looking at what is the latest research, what's that telling, what's the best approach. So we're always in that seek and discovery and improve mentality, whereas you go into some of the other sectors like manufacturing, or even retail, or local government, and they're certainly not in that mentality. They're in that, no, this is how we've always done it. So their continuous improvement mentality might not be great, but their flow and their changeover, all of it. So some aspects are might be more mature than what health is. And I guess also the big difference around that, depending on what part of health you are, is the customer's right in front of you. Manufacturing, or again public service and like a council, the customer's not always in front of you, so it's that step removed, so they can do kind of what they want. You can't do that in the house. So so you've got some of that mindset, which is always different to a different organisation, but but it's really the similarities will come down to the types of leadership who are running those organisations.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
Absolutely. So we've talked about or touched on the word lean. Now, for the uninitiated, what is lean? Where did it come from?
Okay, so lean. I actually don't like using the term a lot because either people love it or they hate it or they don't. But in essence, it's come from Toyota. So Toyota is the birth child of lean thinking, and so early adopters of that. So lean is really looking at optimizing and making more efficient your processes and the steps you make in your organization for the benefit of the customer. So always adding value. So we talk about waste and the 8 wastes. And some of that, it's all common sense, right? So it's, one of the wastes is movement. You know, how much do you move around the organization that you don't actually need because you're poorly planned, or machines are at one end of the shop to the other, or whatever, you know. So, you know, how can we reduce that? Because at the end of the day, the customer isn't interested in that. They don't pay for that time that you waste moving around. Yeah, so there's a whole lot of different wastes that we use to, I guess, look at an organization. So I call it the lens that I look through. So, so that's lean. It's a mindset. It's about continuous improvement. How can we always make these jobs simpler? You know, taking away extra steps that you need to, extra processes. So it's all about thinking linear in terms of process, but minimizing that waste every day by everyone, really. So that's
So you mentioned one of the wastes being movement, and I think there's 8 wastes. Is that right?
Yep.
Tell us about some of the others.
So, I mean, I'll go down the acronym of downtime. So you can, those who are interested, go and, if you haven't heard of them, go and Google them. It's all over the place. But, so D's for defects, and that's quality, right? So that's, how many defects are we doing? Let's get rid of, and find out why, and do the root cause of all of that. So you don't want to keep doing the same defects or the same mistakes, because it's waste, because it's, otherwise it's rework. And so that can happen in manufacturing as much as office work. How many times does someone fill in a form incorrectly or pass over the wrong information incorrectly? So let's, encourage team members to stop and, go back to the people who have provided that information and going, hey, this is wrong. Let's sit down and work it out. So defects, overproduction. We do too much. You go to your local pizza store and they make 50 boxes because they're prepared. But no, just make the ones that you need, because at the end of the day, you might spend too much time making and overstocking. So, so there's that mentality. Waiting is a classic one for any organization. How many times do we wait for a decision? So let's look at that decision-making process, all of those things. So waiting is a huge one. We're always waiting on something. Local government's great for that. And I'll stop at the next one, which is, you've heard me talk about this, and I shamelessly say that when you're in the audience, you're the guru on this one, but it's the non-utilized talent. So to me, kind of bleed that into engaged staff. So if you're using your people right, with their right passions and their right skill sets, we know productivity is excessively more than those who are disengaged. In fact, I finally looked up some stats, because I think you even challenged me in Wellington. And from the low engaged staff to the highest engaged staff, and this is a survey of nearly 1 million people, there's an 18% difference in productivity.
Wow.
But gets even better is there's 1,000% jump in errors made from low engaged staff to high engaged staff. So that's obviously where the productivity gains are made, because if you're not doing as many mistakes. So, and that's the hidden stuff, right? When people are just not motivated and they come to work and they just that little bit slower to do their job, or a little bit slower to initiate the next task, versus the people who just bound into work and loving it. So that's, when you open up people's eyes to those issues, they all can talk about people either end of the spectrum. We've all seen both examples, right? So, but you can't quantify. It's really hard to quantify. So, but it's just like, so how do you engage staff? And that's when people like yourself and myself come and go, well, that's easy. Let's do it.
Let me just get my magic wand. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it is hard work, but
but so it's doable. And when organizations do focus on it, when they realize what you're saying and what the cost is to them of not giving people a shared purpose and goals and clarity and all those little things that you and I talk about, but when they realize what the cost is, and they really do focus on employee engagement. Magic happens. It does. You've seen it and I've seen it, but it's the hardest bit is the beginning. It's getting people to recognise it.
Yeah. So and that's why I've gone back and got the stats around it, and it's. I mean, and just about every survey or every article or every paper, it's relatively the same numbers. So yes, it's a significant difference between non-engaged and engaged. So why not spend time to engage your staff? Some of this stuff is not difficult to do. So that's some of the wastes that way. So I do encourage organisations though to just focus on a few, not all of them, because it's going back, it's too much. Have a month on one to put the heat on one aspect, so everyone learns that in detail. Then have another month on this, and don't stretch yourself too thin.
And what's the process? I think what's the process for identifying where waste is? From a process perspective, is it a matter of mapping out how a value stream and then identifying?
You can do it, and it's quite an enlightening process because I did that with an organisation a couple of weeks ago, and they think a relatively straightforward process, and this is why 3M and sticky notes, we all love them. Because you halfway through the conversation you start moving them and expanding them because they go, oh, actually we do this step too, and we do this step. So good visual process mapping is great to just build awareness of how complex what you think is a simple task is. And I've done that in the past, and people go, yeah, we can't actually improve on that. So then we go, right, what's the time frames between each step? And we, so doing that. But the example when I reflected a few years back when they said, no, that back in a primary care practice, so a GP, and it was a small practice, I only had 2 GPs, but the process was for them perfect. You could not miss a step, both regulatory reasons and process reasons, natural logic. But the outcome was the 2 GPs walking through this process realised they were leaving patient paperwork in 2 different places. So a huge issue if that got lost, right? So imagine if I think this is prescription. So imagine if your prescription got lost, big issue. So it was more of a quality and bit of time from the admin staff who were doing a bit of work around because they knew these 2 GPs left at 2 different places, and they covered it for them. So you do, it's going through the process again. You do uncover those things, and so we didn't improve the process technically, but we did improve the quality at the end. But it was the first time they sat down and went, oh, I thought that's where I always left it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Fix those things. But the admin staff always knew about it, so they did the covering up. So So there's lots of reasons. Or going back onto it, when you go and ask the people who do the job and go, what's the stuff that bugs you most? They will tell you. They will tell you part of the process, which is the stuff that is always going wrong, and people know. So work on those. Work on the stuff that's bugging the people.
Yeah, get your quick wins in.
Yep.
Now, earlier this year, Rob, you wrote about lean, agile, innovation, and productivity living in the same space. So tell us about that.
Right. Beautiful subject, really. And in fact, I'll add this week because it's reasonably high on the agenda around New Zealand. Conversation certainly is R&D. There's a whole lot of debate over here around R&D. Do we get tax credits, or do you apply for grants and all that kind of stuff? So I like keeping it simple. So my basic statement is lean is around, this is where I start. Lean is around efficiency and optimization. So an organization, to even think of some of those other things, you need to get into the DNA of continuous improvement. So it's that mindset of everyone coming to work and asking themselves, how can I improve my job or my colleague's job every day? So, and you do get that. That's where the quick wins come in, and you're always trying to, become more efficient and doing all better quality and all that. So that's lean thinking, continuous improvement. Then we go on innovation, and I think it's a term that's used quite broadly, but I don't think many of us innovate. We improve, but we don't innovate. So, because when you look at the true definition, it's a completely new idea. It's a step above the previous way of doing it. It's quite substantial. That's innovation. I think a lot of businesses do a lot of continuous improvement. And when you look back 5 years versus now, if you take that one leap, that would have been innovation. But most of us do continuous improvement. But saying that, it does happen. It creates new requirements and all of that. But it's built, I think, driven on that continuous improvement mindset. So if you're in that space, you're always going to have those moments of innovation. Productivity is really yin and yang to me with lean, because if you are looking at how do you improve and continuous improvement and making things more efficiency, well, you're going to improve your productivity, because definition of productivity is the rate of output versus input, which is mostly people. So if your people are trying to work out how to do a job better and more effective and more efficient, well, that's going to lift your productivity. So that's, to me, that's the yin and yang. So if you're in that lean productivity mode, that's cool. And out of it comes innovation. Now, where agile fits into that as well is backing on that continuous improvement is, lots of them are those just do it ideas, right? So, just do it, just improve. It might be changing a form, or it might be going to a colleague and going, hey, how do we, redo a new formula on a spreadsheet, or how do we build this widget that we're doing in the factory? We can make those continuous improvement. Reorganize your work desk or your workspace so the movement's a lot less, right? So that's all those just do it stuff. But occasionally, when you're getting into that mindset, a good idea, a bigger idea comes up, and that's more of your project. And so that's where agile for me fits in, is that then gets managed in an agile, right? It's a good idea, but we don't know how to achieve it, which is perfect agile. It's the outcome, but you know what the good idea is. So it's the iteration process, and let's put it into a more formal project to develop the concept, to go to the end user, whether or not that's internal or to your customers, and you iterate it until you get to the result that's good enough, I think is your term.
Yep.
And so that's where agile takes care of some of those larger thought projects that initially might not be fully thought through, but if you take it through that good process in agile, then once it's business as usual, it goes back into kind of your lean continuous improvement, and you'll improve on that large project, which is now BAU. So that's, to me, how lean productivity is together, how agile can fit into that process, but with those big projects, that might be the innovation. And then, of course, innovation or R&D, it's one and the same. When we actually break up, research, let's explore all the good stuff and all that's happening, and just develop ourselves, develop our product, our service, or just our business or our people. So I think if you, sit down, and just think about R&D in those terms, that just simplify it, and it's part of a natural process.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's that all of that whole topic's a bit of a thought and process, but the fact that lean and agile, they are one and the same thing. Come from the same birthplace. Agile was a breakaway from lean, I think back in the 80s when some IT people got their whole hands on it, put a few different titles, but in essence, it's doing the same thing, and a similar process, similar outcome.
Brilliant, thank you. Now, before I ask you about those ugly mugs behind you, I just want to cycle back to you're talking about simulations and
Yes.
Lego and cruise ships. Tell us briefly what they are.
Yeah, no, that's my fun part. So Lean Lego's been around. There's a few different variations of it, but yeah, effectively it's a 4-step process. It takes about 3.5, 4 hours, and I really use it now to introduce lean thinking and the fundamental building blocks. So you take a group of around about 10 to 15 people is the optimal number, and yeah, you basically get them to create a couple of widgets, product A and product B, and they go from chaos the first round, and that's right down to the instructions aren't clear, and I always get feedback at the time going, no, you're not making sense. But that's reality, right? So it's putting that reality. Sometimes our instructions to people aren't clear, so we talk about that. So so we have 4 iterations, or 3 or 4 depending on our time frames, and they eventually, the first round they go, that's impossible, you can't do it in 6 minutes. You get us to make 80 of these little widgets, can't do it, we need more people. And you always go, well, actually, I won't say too many secrets, but more people, right?
Yeah.
To the end where they realize that they can do it half the time with half the amount of people. So it's a great way. So much better than sitting here talking and doing a slideshow of this and all that. I'm an OT, but occupational therapist by training, so it's all about getting and doing, and all about context. So it is a great way to introduce the topics, have a bit of fun. Some of the roles that get done, you always make sure the younger people get the roles that literally, I had one guy a couple of weeks ago in sweating. He was taking his tie off and he was dripping in sweat. But so it's around about taking away the practical steps around the 8 wastes and setting up and organising yourself and becoming more efficient. It's a great way to introduce communication and planning. All of those things that make good teamwork. I think very similar to what James does with his simulations as well. So, but for teams, it's really good because it creates a safe place to anchor their comments later on. So instead of going back into the workshop and challenging a colleague of, hey, I don't think you're doing that right, is, hey, remember that Lego game thing? Rob showed us this, and I think this is this. So it's a nice, tell them to use it in that way. It's a nice way to hook back into and raise a topic reasonably safely. So, but it's fun. It's fun. Yeah. So, I use that more and more now just to get the message.
They're great fun and very powerful as well. So before we wrap up, Rob, tell us about good guidance that you're.
Good guidance. Bunch of crazy people really that get together and have some madcap ideas. But no, seriously, it's. I guess James was the instigator of it, and got yourself, April, and myself, and now Paul, which we're really pleased. So it's really just a group that's come together on a formal collaborative or a collective, without pulling all of our businesses together, I guess. So for me, it's been awesome because one, it's that peer support that you don't get or you have to find when you're like battling the day-to-day grind as an independent consultant or contractor. But just sharing ideas and being able to offer those ideas and services and their skill sets to the clients. So when I'm with a client, or we've got an ideal client, but going to be too much capacity for myself or even capability in the right, then it's you've got that credibility, I guess, with the whole group in behind you. So and it becomes a lot easier for the clients too, who go, oh, we need X, Y, and Z, and you're just going, right, I'll organise that, and that they'll just be part of my team. So yeah, so that it makes a whole lot of sense, the good guidance, and yeah, the different skill sets that overlap slightly, but really provide I think, yeah, certainly with Paul coming on, quite a holistic approach. So yeah, it's exciting times for the group.
Well, over the coming weeks, I will be talking to April and I will be talking to Paul. So everyone will get a good chance to hear what they do and what they think around good guidance. So, Rob, where can people find out more information about Plexus?
Probably two main ones. Obviously, the logical one, website, plexusconsulting.co.nz. And I think there's enough buttons that you can push across all the different pages to finally get hold of me, so that's fine. And it's got it there. But I'm certainly on LinkedIn just about every day. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn and have a chat. Answer questions. I had a colleague who's asking me questions offline last night, and so I got permission to cut and paste and put it online. Yeah, so no, I really do encourage being challenged and having conversations on LinkedIn.
To anyone who's watching this and is interested in what Rob does, wants to continue the conversation, jump on LinkedIn and reach out and ask those questions. Rob, it's been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time. I know it's evening for you. It'll be about 7:36 now there. So thank you so much. As I said, appreciate your time, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, everyone. Bye.